Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful idea, how a simple change in the way you look at things can take what feels like a total catastrophe and turn it into your biggest win. So, how does that work? Let's get into it.
I know, it sounds kind of crazy, right? Can a disaster actually be a success? It seems like a total contradiction. But what if the very thing that feels like it's breaking you is actually setting you up for your biggest breakthrough? We're going to explore this idea through two really powerful, timeless stories.
First, let's talk about a feeling that I think we've all had at some point: despair. You know, that moment when everything you've worked so hard for, all of your plans just completely falls apart. You know how it goes. You make your plans, you put in all the work, and then poof, life just throws a curveball and nothing goes the way you thought it would. You're left feeling lost, frustrated, maybe even a little cheated by the universe. And it's right there, in that moment of hopelessness, that our first story begins. So this first parable is all about how we handle those huge, catastrophic events that are completely, 100% out of our control. It's the story of a castaway who literally loses everything he has. All right, so picture this. A man survives a shipwreck, only to end up totally alone on a deserted island. For weeks, he prays and prays to be rescued, but nothing. Eventually, he just gives up hope and decides, okay, I've got to survive on my own. He spends the next 20 days building a little wooden hut. But then, the very next day, he goes out to find food, and when he comes back, he finds his hut completely burnt to the ground. Everything is gone. I mean, can you imagine? This is his absolute rock bottom. He's furious, he's heartbroken, and he screams at the sky, feeling completely and utterly abandoned. From his point of view, this is just the final, cruelest joke the world could play on him. But then, the very next morning, everything changes. A ship appears on the horizon. The captain comes ashore and tells him, "We saw your smoke signal." The castaway is just stunned. The fire, the very thing he saw as his ultimate disaster, was actually the signal that saved his life. So what's the big lesson here? Well, it's that sometimes we just can't see the full picture. What looks like a total, devastating loss might actually be a blessing in disguise, a signal you didn't even know you were sending. It might be the very thing that opens a new door you never would have found otherwise. Okay, so that's one piece of the puzzle, changing our view on the things that happen to us. But what about the stuff we can control, our internal world? This next story is all about how changing your mind can literally, and I mean literally, change your entire reality. This story kicks off with a beggar who walks up to a successful-looking businessman and asks for some money. But instead of just giving him a coin, the businessman hits him with this challenge. And this one question just completely shatters the beggar's whole view of himself and the world. And that question just sticks with him, you know? So he decides to do something about it. He starts picking flowers, and for every person that gives him money, he gives him a flower in return. And something amazing happens. People start giving him more money. A while later, he bumps into that same businessman who looks at him and says, "See, you've become a businessman, just like me." And that's the light bulb moment. The beggar realizes he isn't a beggar anymore, and he takes that new identity, that new self-belief, and uses it to build a huge, successful flower business. And this, right here, this comparison really gets to the heart of it. In the beginning, nothing on the outside had changed. He was still on the same street. The only thing that shifted was the story he told himself about himself. He went from thinking, "I am a beggar, a taker," to "I am a businessman, a giver, someone who provides value." This was the key insight that changed everything. He understood that the whole transaction had shifted. He wasn't a charity case anymore. He was a vendor. People weren't just giving him handouts. They were becoming his first customers. They were paying him for the value he was providing, even if it was something as simple as a flower. So, how do these two powerful stories connect? On one hand, we have a story about trusting the journey when things go horribly wrong externally. And on the other, we have a story about taking complete control of your internal identity. You know, that idea the businessman brought up? Well, it actually has a name, the law of give and take. It's a really fundamental principle in life. To receive value, you have to first provide value. The beggar finally understood this, and by shifting his mindset from just taking to giving, he completely transformed his life. So when you put it all together, you get these two keys to being truly resilient. The castaway story teaches us to have faith in the process, to trust that a setback might just be a setup for a comeback. And the beggar's story teaches us to take total ownership of the one thing we can always control, how we see ourselves. True strength isn't just one or the other, it's combining both. When it all boils down to it, both of these parables are telling us the same incredibly powerful thing. Your success is hidden in your thinking. Your reality is shaped by your thoughts. If you see yourself as small, you'll act small. To become something bigger, you have to first think bigger. And that brings me to a final question I want to leave with you. Think about a challenge or a step back you're facing in your life right now. Is it possible, just possible, that what feels like your own personal burning house might actually be a smoke signal, pointing you towards a rescue you never could?